Rabin, and I'm very glad you're joining us again today. Today we're going to have another very interesting show. We have invited back the distinguished physicist, quantum physicist these days, Amit Goswami, who is the author of numerous books, but today the focus will be this last book of his, How Quantum Activism Can Save Civilization. And God knows it needs to be saved and quickly. Which, by the way, reminds me of the book that I'm writing called Creating a Better World Quickly. And I cannot get it done fast enough for the same obvious reasons, you know.
Great. I'm glad we are in sync, Mitchell.
Indeed, we are, Amit. We noticed that last time. We had Amit, for those of you who watch with any regularity, on the show exactly a year ago. And we're going to pick up on that thread. So stay tuned for discussing two of really my favorite subjects. One, quantum physics and its interface with our understanding of the larger cosmological picture, i.e. God, and activism, i.e. how do we take the gift of our birth, of our human existence, and channel it in a way so that it is in service to the larger good and the larger whole. And these are subjects that Amit discusses in this book rather eloquently, and we'll have a chance to kind of go over that in today's show. So I'm so glad to have you.
Me too.
Namaste, as we say in Chinese.
Namaste.
Very good. So you make some wonderful quantum leaps, as it were, in this book, Amit, about the nature of reality, the way we perceive it, the way we think about it, changing worldviews, and how to use some of the greatest breakthroughs in our scientific understanding to grok, if you will, that there really is this notion of a higher intelligence.
Yes, not only grok, but to use it in such a way that our world becomes better.
Exactly. A practical use of God, you could say, which I adore. I adore. So first of all, let's start at the beginning, if you will. Now, I don't mean in the beginning was the word. I mean, how is it that quantum physics actually explains and proves what we refer to as the existence of God?
Actually, you know, when I first started it, there's all these philosophy books which says that God is ineffable, cannot be taught in science, it's not scientific idea.
Utterly mystical and mysterious.
Exactly. And mystics have added to it too. I mean, they have this sort of same notion. Better keep it separate. It's not a scientific idea. Scientists keep away. You know, even today, Ken Wilber, transpersonal psychologist, certainly does not like the materialist worldview against scientific materialism.
Yes.
But when it comes to science of God, his position is that no science for God. You can't do it. But actually,
keep them separate.
Keep them separate.
The domain separate.
But actually the question is very scientific, because a God which doesn't have causal power is a meaningless God. You know, that's Einstein's God, this benign caretaker of the garden. It's a meaningless God because God has no role to play, except if you believe in very childish kind of God started the world and then went away and retired.
An anthropocentric
very anthropocentric. Very
which
anthropocentric.
is such a serious egocentric problem.
So then it's a very simple question. Is there any other causal source in the world than material interactions? Material interactions are upward causation because elementary particles produce everything else. And there are
atoms
interactions.
to molecules to cells to organs to tissues,
exactly.
etc.
So cause goes upwards.
Organ. Right.
So we just
as Ken Wilber talks about when he refers to his holons, of course, the work of Kessler.
But then we just ask the question: is there downward causation? Is there any evidence or also any theory that requires downward causation? And lo and behold, physics itself, at the base root, it becomes quantum physics. It's not Newtonian physics anymore. It's quantum physics. And what does quantum physics tell us? It tells us that objects are possibilities. So indeed, a causal power is needed to make possibilities into actualities, because material interactions just cannot do it. It's a mathematically proven fact. So mathematics
Matter
compels
has
us.
its own cause and effect domain.
And
does
that's
it
the
not?
material interactions. But these cause and effects, all they manage to do is produce possibilities. Possibilities for consciousness to choose from. So consciousness has a role. There is a role for downward causation. After all, without which there would be no manifest experience. We have no science of experience. Materialists cannot give any science of experience. This question
Because
has been...
that's the subjective realm.
That's right. Subjective realm by definition. You cannot produce subjective realm from objectivity. So all you can do is to throw out the subjective realm as meaningless, which is, of course, some scientists are doing that, but it doesn't help. Science is for helping people. If a science that produces only a theory for the objective half, that's good, but it's incomplete, obviously. We must understand...
Like by about half.
Right. And also, if the subjectivity has causal efficacy, then it cannot be ignored. And so now we are seeing, quantum physics is forcing us to see that not only is the subject part relevant, but also there is causal efficacy in the subject part. There is causal power. Consciousness causally chooses out of the possibilities, the actual events of the world. So, in a sense, consciousness manifests the manifest world.
That's right. So what we have as one of the experiments done long ago, perhaps one of the first in this domain, was the observation that awareness, i.e. attention, to an atom changed its behavior from particle to wave.
That's right. That's right.
That immediately shows the causal relationship and the inherent integral relationship.
By the way, can I correct your...
Yes.
The words should be wave to a particle. We measure, wave becomes a particle.
Oh, yes, please, thank you. Okay, got it.
So
Wave becomes a particle, okay.
So wave of possibility, particle of actuality.
Now, could intent change that?
Yes, it actually, intention is how it begins, this process. So we intend, and if our intention then resonates with the intention of non-local consciousness, this concept has to be understood. Non-local means a connected, interconnectedness.
Yes, indeed.
That goes beyond our individuality. So we have to connect with that deeper level of ourselves. If our intention resonates with that deeper level, then our intentions really create the work.
Right.
Create,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Now, one of the points you make well at the beginning of the book has to do with this notion of God as ineffable and outside the time-space continuum. And therein, that's where we get the quantum notion, scientific notion, of downward causation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could you speak about that a little bit?
Yes, it is very important to understand that the olden day people
And
were
that outside of the time-space, by the way, is what we refer to as the basis of non-locality.
Yes, and also we refer to as such exalted notions as heaven.
Yes.
So this interconnected...
Or maybe even God Almighty.
Yeah.
That idea. All of the terms of exaltation are referring to that which is
that non-local arena
or
of
exactly
reality.
outside of the time-space
Yeah,
realm,
outside.
which is subject to that ineffable outside space.
Yes,
so
so
to speak.
science, by insisting that space-time is all there is how it has excluded spirituality, excluded God, excluded mind, excluded consciousness. And now we find that to limit nature, just saying that nature is space and time is to throw away all of this, but quantum physics refuses to do that. If you did that, there would be no actuality, says quantum physics, because everything is possibility. You have to have two domains. Possibilities reside in a transcendent domain outside of space and time. When consciousness chooses, we get actuality in an immanent domain of space and time.
Yes.
Okay, you have to have these two levels of reality.
And yet, it's not a duality.
It's not
either.
a duality.
Could you
it's
speak
not
to that?
a
'Cause that's a very
dualism.
important point.
It's a duality, perhaps, because we experience it as a duality, but it's not a dualism, because because there is no separate interaction between a world of consciousness and world of matter. World of matter is included in the world of consciousness. Consciousness is the ground of being in which matter exists as possibility. So matter can exist as possibility, mind can exist as possibility, vital energies can exist as possibility. When you actualize vital energies, we feel. When you actualize mind, we think. When you actualize physical, we sense. And we can even postulate that there is an intuitive level, archetypal level of the world, the highest level. If we actualize that, we intuit.
Yes.
This is why intuition is so fleeting. It's so difficult.
It's almost, you could almost say, the interface between these two domains. It's where the physical being, or the human being, is receiving what is non-local, that intelligence.
Yeah.
Is that a fair thing to say?
The fundamental intelligence of the universe
Right.
lies in this archetypal. Of course, all of it is non-locally related to matter, mind, all of these aspects of consciousness. So, but the highest realm of this is the supramental, archetypal realm.
Mm-hmm. Could you explain what that is?
So, what are the archetypes? So, when we intuit, what do we intuit? We intuit values, that we should be good. That's one of the intuitions. People struggle with it. You know, we have brain circuits, no question. Evolutionarily, we have been given these instincts. And let's face it, materialists are not wrong. I mean, scientific data is scientific data.
Yes.
Scientific theories explain scientific data. Sometimes they explain the present data, they cannot explain other data. So we can say that the theories are limited, but we can never say that the theories are wrong.
Right, they're not. I would put it this way: they're not incorrect. They are a subset
They're a
of
subset.
a much larger picture
Yeah.
that is described in quantum mechanics.
Right, they're a subset. Beautifully spoken. So what we are saying is that in that subset, the way biologists portray us, that we are competitive, we are just trying to survive, that just is a limited picture of ourselves.
So yes, you're saying that science, as we've known it, materialist, Newtonian physics, is essentially incomplete in itself. It has all of the intelligence that we know that it has. So it's not wrong, it's just, as you said, incomplete,
Right.
and a smaller part of the larger universal picture.
Right. And the other thing to understand is that there already are disparate ways that the new science have entered our life. For example, in medicine, alternative medicine is already there, and it's useful. People go to an acupuncturist,
Definitely.
they find usefulness. They are healed, at least temporarily, but whereas allopathy can do anything for people who are helped by acupuncture or Ayurveda or homeopathy. So the utility of part of this alternative science technology is without question established. What is not established is that we cannot possibly have a disparate alternative something here and regular something, conventional something there. There got to be an integrating principle. So quantum physics and this notion of primacy of consciousness, or God, if you will, downward causation, this is giving us the integrating thread. And your experience of science, of physics, biology, every science, the science that integrates always becomes the winner, always gets the nod.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So you're raising a few interesting things. One is that I'm reminded, Amit, of a friend of mine who is a Ukrainian-born engineer and physicist who attends engineering and physicist conferences around the world and presents papers. And he developed a slide rule many years ago that proves, he said to me in our first conversation, the existence of God. I said, but with a slide rule? He said, absolutely, because I can prove the absolute from which the relative. Very interesting. He said all of his colleagues go to these conferences and they just don't use the G word. But they all know what they're talking about. They're just using camouflaged techno language to describe the phenomenon. It's interesting. So what you're really saying is that beyond any shadow of a doubt, according to scientific verification, objective, impartial, that that notion we refer to as God, which is the all-embracing, ineffable intelligence that essentially created the universe on the macro scale as well as the micro, is completely certain.
Completely certain, and it is causally potent, and all of us can be empowered by God's causal power.
Whatever word we want to use.
Whatever word we want to
Some people
use.
feel an affinity toward the word God, many do not.
Yeah.
And it does not matter.
Does not matter. We can call it quantum consciousness, which I
Yes.
often do because
Correct.
I do talk to scientist types in scientific conferences. And there I respect their view, because indeed many people identify the word God with such simplistic notions,
That's
as a
correct.
bearded guy sitting on a throne in
Oh
the
my
sky.
God.
So
What
of course we-
Christianity has done. And it's not just Christianity. All religions,
All
are
popular
truly
religions.
popular
All
religions
popular
are
religions.
guilty of fomenting madness when it comes to the concept, which is non-conceptual, of God.
Yeah.
And so people are laboring under this understanding that is just so belittling to themselves.
Yeah. And you have to honor that. You have to honor.
You do. And then you understand how you might have to change language a little bit.
Yeah, because this change will do us good. Actually God itself, of course, has a history. There were so many pantheon gods and so many
Yes,
gods,
indeed.
and then we have this one God idea. But that, of course, also is open to dualism, God versus world, and so forth. And then we have
good
esoteric,
and evil.
good and evil.
Satan. Right, exactly.
And then we had esoteric notions in Christianity, in Hinduism, and Buddhism, and everywhere, which made a patchwork of philosophy. And that basic idea of that philosophy is this transcendence and immanence, but immanence is not separate from transcendence, it's included. The olden day people just did not know how that inclusion takes place. In other words, they did not know that there can be interaction between two disparate objects without exchanging signals. This is the new discovery.
Yes. I'm glad you're mentioning this. The signal-based life, domain, time, space, and the non-signal.
Non-signal based.
Please,
This is a
explicate.
crucial. This is a crucial discovery and so easy to verify. Right?
Yes.
If there is a non-signal based communication that is possible between us and things,
And this is essentially the definition of non-locality.
non-locality,
Right.
then we have done it. Then we have shown not only proven the existence of God, but we have proven it with unique signature, because material interactions can never occur without signals. So material interactions can never simulate non-locality. You see the enormity of this. This is non-locality is God's unique signature. If there is non-local interactions between people and things, then there is God.
What is an example of that?
What? Simple telepathy. Quantum healing, that's another one. All of a sudden, healing takes place. Prayer, effect of prayer on healing.
You're reminding me that the reason I went to college, I went to Bard, and I went there to study parapsychology in order to prove the existence of God through telepathy.
See?
I was 18,
Uh-huh.
but that's what I said. I said, I want to prove that there is truly only one mind.
Yeah.
And there really is.
And it is, the proof, the fact that it is proof was not clear in the mind of parapsychologists for a long time. And many parapsychologists still believe that someday there will be a new discovery in materialist science where people will find a fifth force, where there will be an exchange of some very subtle particles, and it will be included in materialism. But the point is that, there are not only this what we call telepathy or non-locality across space. There is also non-locality across time, precognition.
Yes,
There is also this other kind of phenomena,
clairvoyance.
clairvoyance. There is also phenomena like near-death experiences have been suggested.
Exactly.
People have died and still have seen. This is
Totally.
really this
so
just blows your
cool.
mind, right?
Exactly.
Because a person has died. That's what the indicators are telling, and this
The
person
material indicators.
material indicators,
But the
and this
non-material indicators are,
are the descriptions that the person gives after he is revived.
I have
And
seen
what
the
does
light.
he say?
Right.
Not only I have seen the light, but they actually describe things that only the doctors and nurses could know who are operating.
Yes.
How could a person see details of an operation which is so personal, so specific to that particular operation? So this kind of thing just shakes you up and shows that non-locality is not due to material interactions. It just cannot be.
Synchronicity.
Synchronicity is another example.
Synchronicity is another one,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Absolutely.
So, really interesting. Okay. Now, even though I have a zillion more questions in this domain that I want to ask you, I'm going to fast forward a little bit after you define what you call spirituality.
Okay, so what is spirituality?
Then we'll move into activism
Yes.
and the issues, the problems we're facing as a globe.
Spirituality begins when we ask this question. So there is now the faith. There is now scientific evidence for the faith in God and downward causation. And then what should I do about it? When we ask the question, what should I do about this extra dimension of the world that is now open to me? We have the power of downward causation. We really have freedom to choose. And then we can freedom to choose God and spirituality. In other words, using this power, doing the job of what God wants us to do, the evolution of consciousness. Or we can stay in the material domain, which of course is our conditioned domain of activity.
Conditioned response.
We do get conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
That the new science is also saying. New science agrees and proves that indeed you can be creative or you can be conditioned. So it really is a choice. We can choose the condition in which you stay in the materialist domain and you're okay. I mean, be happy with your pleasures and pains, your brain phenomenon and what you have. Or you expand yourself to creativity, to spirituality, and really, really invest yourself in the search for meaning. You know, this word meaning will become the dominant word of 21st century.
Oh, so true. So true. And humor.
Absolutely.
It needs to be.
Absolutely.
Sure. Because we are truly the meaning makers.
Yeah.
Which is a very powerful thing to say. When you recognize that you can either empower something to be phenomenal or not.
Yes.
That's very powerful. That's a godlike trait, if you will.
Yeah, and we have it. In our creativity, we have that godlike trait. We can access downward causation. So the invitation of quantum activism is to connect, reconnect. You know, our ego is a disconnect.
Yes.
But we don't have to stay with the ego. The reason is this is also experimentally verified, that we have the free will to say no. As soon as you have said no to conditioning, no, I won't stay with identity with the conditioned self. No, I won't stay with my pleasures and pain syndromes that are etched in the brain. I will instead investigate new meaning. What is the meaning of my life? What is the meaning of the world? What is it that consciousness is moving towards? I want to join the adventure of consciousness. I want to stay in the gutter of already known. I want to explore the unknown.
Novelty.
This is
as
how
Terence McKenna
novelty.
used to talk about all
This
the
is
time.
how spirituality is interpreted in the new
Yes, indeed.
science.
And I will say that different intelligences in the body, interestingly, because there is this, you know, the Buddhists talk about form and not form, the visible and the invisible as being two sides of the same coin.
Absolutely.
And so that means that we're dealing with the void, if you will, all the time that we're dealing with what's manifest. The manifest and the unmanifest. You know, you reminded me, I'm enjoying you so much, Amit. This is really very beautiful for me. When I was 15, I was reading the Upanishads.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I was a student of yoga. But I was reading the Upanishads, and I was reading about the world. And I tell you, I had the most powerful first or second spiritual experience of my life. And I was raised as a secular Jew, basically, you know. No God. My mother was essentially an atheist, somewhere between atheist and agnostic. And, but certainly no God, that word was essentially verboten in my house.
Yeah.
I had what I would call in physics a unified field experience.
Uh-huh.
And everything changed.
Yeah.
And it was from reading about just what you were talking about so beautifully, about recognizing the difference between the conditioned and unconditional world. Listen, it's unbelievable, but time has run out in a linear way. But I would love to continue this dialogue, if we could, and get into the quantum activism.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so
You're
much.
very welcome.
We've been speaking with Dr. Amit Goswami, who is the author of this book and many others. He was on the great film, What the Bleep Do We Know? He's world-renowned for his work and his teachings and his teaching people how to think in a quantum way. So thanks so much for joining us. This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World, and stay tuned for the next show with Amit. I think you will enjoy it. Thanks for joining us.